I did watch this one live, but I wasn't like over analyzing it or anything like that. So
expect to see much the same coming out from the Fusion, though. Sato, no, gonna roll out on the ball. So and stand one back to the ball. So it's gonna be.
So this is the comp I was expecting for this map for the last teams. Widow Tracer, Ball, Sigma. Both teams running Zen here. I think one, this is like a first fight thing, sort of like the Pharah that we saw from Prophet, where teams will run Zen because it's a greedier pick, and it can snowball really well if you win the first fight. Having Zen after winning first fight means you're going to be close to trance, means you're going to be able to 5-orb chokes, means you're going to have a lot of forward pressure to go aggressive when the enemy team is trying to retake. So I like the Zen pick. I'm hoping we do see more Zen, because I think Zen's a more interesting hero in these compositions than Ana, who is just kind of like a nanobot.
Sigma on both sides.
Yeah, it's a full mirror comp. This is going to place a ton of emphasis on the Widow duel. Hisu and DM getting an opening pick here is going to be absolutely massive. You see Fleta here on the flank. He's come all the way behind. Should give his.
So yeah, another very rotation-heavy map. Big reason why Ball is so good on this map. You can basically play wherever you want and get wherever you want.
Again, it's all about this Widow duel.
Oh, another thing to call out, Stand 1 was in for this match as their dedicated Ball and Hog player, which I think is really smart for Shanghai to put time into. It's clear they've been putting a lot of effort in this small break between matches.
Get first control.
Yeah, first cap is big. You don't want to be giving up control time like that. Matters a lot on Koth. Can put a lot of pressure on, though. That
big pick from Hisu.
It will be quickly res, but a lot of pressure comes out of the tanks. Philly needs to find something more, but it's actually
Shanghai's answering now.
From Izayaki that does.
Carpe tries to find a way in, but just gets taken down.
Ends up getting punished in turn. The Fusion now, they're just getting poked down on all angles. Fleta going in for the kill. Fury super low. Sato pushed out, and you know the Fusion, they don't stagger here, Jake.
Very low kill game so far. Like these fights have been like over after one kill.
You spoke a little bit too soon, a little bit
oh,
of caster curse.
maybe not this one.
They are getting staggered and brutally so. Shanghai charging forward, Fury dropping low. If he dies, that would be so painful. And this is where it really counts that Shanghai got that early flip. You know, typically with a one fight on mid, you might be at
again, no one dying there.
Right now, but Shanghai, they're doubling up on that because they got the
what's up, Noxious? How you doing?
Point control before the fight even broke down. So Philly really going to be hurting from that.
Forcing the trance out. Hisu gets another pick.
Though he does give his life for it. So the Fusion, they commit the Transcendence here. Funny Astro going to the top with the Valkyrie. The res somehow comes in the Fleta. They don't protect it. But the Void down,
it seems like Philly just don't know how to get in. Okay, never mind. They just got 3 kills. It looked like they were forcing that choke, like the drum side on the right there, like way too much for way too long, but it actually pays off, so good for them. The fact that like they were able to take aggression for so long without like team wiping is a really good sign for Philly. Shows they know how to kite properly, they know how to absorb aggression, and that's often, at least from what we saw from the last series, is how teams are actually finding opportunities to go aggressive themselves, is by absorbing the initial aggression from the enemy team. I'm good, how am I? I'm doing good. Just rewatching these games.
Rookie of the year for a reason. The backbone of this Fusion team. Now DM looking for an opening. Meanwhile, we got Carpe on the side. Pulse bomb locked and ready to go. The Fusion desperately need to add on to their lead here. Sato drops a
nice stick, Carpe. Traded pulse bomb for stick, or sorry, pulse bomb for trance twice now.
Going for the flux. Fusion expecting some resources to stay in control.
Both teams trading here, a lot of frags. Shanghai going to be very
a lot of like individually good plays from Philly, but it seems like not everyone's ready to commit. Where if you look at, if you compare them to Shock, for example, every time there's an advantage made by Shock, everyone's committing right afterwards. So for example, forcing that trance out leading into the Sigma ult, it looked like there were 3 members from Philly just on point, not really pushing into it or pushing anywhere else. And Shanghai's taking advantage of that by just controlling more of the map and then collapsing. Even though they're down members or down resources, they're collapsing faster with more precision than I'm seeing from Philly.
In a pretty commanding fashion, and you know, Jake, I would just rewind.
That map did not look that one-sided. Like the team fights were not like instantly won by Shanghai or anything. They were just Philly was burning a lot of time. That was a big part of it. And the times where they were able to really find opportunities to close out fights, they were not pulling trigger fast enough.
If you
I love
however, it might be a
VODs
little
that
bit
I can
harder
fast forward.
to do here because high ground is so important on this map. If you lose control of that high ground,
Alright,
yeah,
Ash
you
this
might have the
time
point
for
cap, but
Shanghai.
you're going to be in a tough spot.
I think on this map, it doesn't necessarily favor one side or the other. I think both Widow and Ash are viable. I think it slightly changes how you play because you need to play a little bit more aggressive with Ash to find the same amount of value. You need to close the distance a little bit more. You need to get into dynamite range. You need to get surprising angles, where Hisu, on the other hand, can play a little more defensively and come out with late peaks because he always has that one-shot potential. He doesn't need to line up timing with his team as much in terms of like being pocketed by Mercy and being online at the same time as his team. He can catch people off guard more often and stuff like that. So I'm expecting Shanghai to take a lot more space initially, and it's going to be up to Hisu to sort of answer that with good positioning. Oh my god, Stand 1's going so aggressive. They're not even letting him out of spawn. How is Philly this far back that they can't handle a ball and a tracer? They have a Sigma there. How does Funny Astro go down there? That's insane to me. I think that looked like a symptom of trying too much to do your own play without respecting what the enemy's doing. So like they obviously weren't ready for that rollout from Stand 1 and Fleta. But the fact that they just see a void. They actually do win out this fight, so I'm gonna rewatch this actually because this was insane to me. So they kill Funny Astro. Hisu does kill DM though, as DM's trying to push up across the bridge. And they're not able to get the res because obviously Hisu's got positioning. Sato then kills Izayaki. So they do trade out Funny Astro, but Funny Astro's not as crucial to the comp as Lee Jae-gon is, because they don't need the boost on Hisu to get the one-shot potential and to be an active threat from long range. And they're actually stabilizing really well. Their core members, I would say the Tracer, the Widow, and the Ball, all stayed alive, and they were able to execute plays because they were all still alive and stable. Even though Funny Astro went down, they didn't lose too much, and they were able to trade at the same time. So good on Philly. It's just there's no reason Funny Astro should die there in the first place either. They should have been able to absorb that aggression, but still go for the same play, and then still have Funny Astro alive during the fight.
Hisu looking for the early shot. Most of the Dragons able to get through. Lee Jae-gon doesn't take any chances. Dashes on in. So the Dragons have gone through the first hurdle. They get through the choke point now. Sitting up on the high ground in the Fusion. They're going to dance around this a little bit. They don't look to contest it immediately. Look at Stand 1 from the back, pressuring the sports alarm. Super low.
Oh my god, he just burns him.
Takes down Hisu at the end of Flooded. That was so well coordinated.
Again, these are just two-man dives. Like, how is it so easy? Well, not so easy, but how are Stand 1 and Flooded getting away with those kills? Ooh, nice shot from DM.
They've got to stay on, and they do lose the flip on the side of Philadelphia Fusion. So looks like they want to continue fighting this. Both support ults are ending in the picks. They're coming on the way.
He's just getting burned.
They invested so much in that fight, and they get absolutely nothing but a kick.
So this is going to be really bad for Philly because it's going to be harder for them to retake with Widow than it would be with Ash, in my opinion. Okay, they're going to alarm Ana now instead of Zen, because again, harder to retake with Zen. Unless you have Trance to really get you into the fight immediately when you need it.
You're talking about the Widow, but now Hisu going over to the Ash.
Okay, now Hisu on Ash too.
So
okay.
He's be able to play it at close enough range to just force those one-shot kills where Widow's less relevant.
Sort of a symptom of the Zen pick as well. I think where like you win the first fight, you have control. Zen and Widow can pop off. When you're retaking, it just makes more sense to have more flexible heroes.
Dropping the flux right over near the choke. DM brought back up. Both teams playing two from help, but Carpe can't be stopped.
Oh my god, Void lives there?
Finds Izayaki, and Carpe continues to be such a huge problem for the Fusion now, or for the Dragons.
Again, a lot of good opportunities for Fusion here, but they're taking so long to capitalize on them. Part of that is by design, by Shanghai doing a really good job kiting. But I think also Fusion need to think like another step ahead, where they're ready for their initial rollout and for the initial aggression, but then they're not ready for their play to follow that up to really give themselves the proper teamfight win, teamfight advantage.
Now Lee Jae-gon, Izayaki, they used both support ults trying to hold on, and they didn't get anything. So now Carpe, he's going to be attacking that backline with a vengeance, and they're going to lack the defensive tools to stop him.
They're going to nano here, which could be important.
Both teams having more luck on the attack than the defense. Dragons now heading over and
nano onto Carpe.
He's able to find Izayaki immediately, and Carpe off the nano boost just heads to the back.
Nice patience play
of Hisu.
from Carpe there, not
Yes,
overcommitting.
Jake, they're really coming alive.
That tracking was so
It's interesting to
clean
me,
on the DM
like,
in the air, just absolutely rolled him through the mercy.
how these players can just be absolutely dominating, but then like they have the patience to reel themselves in and not overcommit and not throw away these advantages. So good on Carpe there.
But still, being forced to stay on point here is really rough. It's going to mean Hisu is going to be relatively
Nice stick.
Oh, that's such
If he can stop that res, it'll be huge.
And now Carpe, you get
Nice.
you don't have to be worried about getting one tapped. Hisu
All right, Philly should have this round.
Carpe from the back. The Dragons, they cannot withstand the flank. And the Fusion going, no, we're not going to lose this in 2 rounds.
So Fusion already looking a little more collected that round compared to the last one. Maybe do the map design. It's just tighter, doesn't require as many flanks and aggressive setups. But I like the fact that they're willing to swap onto Ana, swap onto Ashe when they don't have fights going their way. It means they have that flexibility, number one, but it also shows that they're aware of the disadvantages they have inherent to the comp in retake situations and stuff like that.
Was how tactical he was. He's always targeting the right player, always finding that exact weak spot for the Dragons. You know, especially think about in that last moment when he came back in with the pulse bomb from behind while Shanghai was trying to retake. You know, Carpe kind of had his pick of the litter there. He could have gone down and he
fast forward a bit. Oh, this is where they pause. Right, I forgot about this. This is why the VOD's so long.
On Mecha Base was absolutely absurd. I don't know if he missed any pulse bombs, like not that I saw, which is, I mean, that's completely ridiculous. Sometimes that ultimate is a bit of a throwaway. You know, even the best players are only going to have maybe a high percentage, but it's almost never.
We need to go to. We saw downtown. We saw Mecha Base. Oh no, we saw Sanctuary. We need to go to downtown.
This guy does not make mistakes, at least apparently from my perspective, and this.
Okay, now we're in downtown. And more ball Fury on D.Va. They're going for like a full dive.
Map 1 will fall away as Hisu already off on the flank, looking for what he can find.
Fury gonna make the switch.
Hisu just goes down.
But it's Shanghai who take first blood.
Surprised Hisu was on that wide flank. He should know he's got no chance to support if he goes all the way out there. And they weren't in the process of making an aggressive play, so that flank isn't warranted. If anything, he should be taking that flank either a lot later, to the time that Sato and Fury are already going in with Carpe, creating space for him to take a wide angle, an unsuspecting angle to capitalize on the dive, or he should be playing main in a more defensible angle that's either looking for initiations himself, pickoffs, or again just ready to follow up from a generic angle.
I do think though the Fusion are starting off on a bad foot here, where Hisu went off for the flank, the Dragons were able to catch
Fury
it.
swaps onto the Sigma. Interesting swaps. I mentioned I like the fact that they were ready to swap before, but I'm not sure why they even rolled out on D.Va if they're just going to give up versus the same comp we just saw.
Difficult for Alarm, especially if Flood is able to do this.
Nice accretion from Void.
Maybe they were worried about Pharah. I could see that.
Flutta in that video talking about, you know, his team is the spear, they're not the shield, and they're certainly looking like it on this round. It's an explosive start, and they've been doing this all without ultimates, so just a pretty ridiculous.
Shanghai just like all gas right now.
But just going to be matched by Lee Jae gone, and then you're going to be pushing into DMs.
We saw that like super aggressive rollout didn't work out on Mecha Base, but it seems like their aggression first fight here is just completely dominating, completely annihilated Hisu's position, and then they were able to choke them out.
I mean, the Dragons are already at 60%. The Fusion looks so slow right now, and it's because of how the Dragons have been
burning a lot of time. I think they're trying too hard for these perfect engages. And they're not capitalizing on smaller advantages when instead they're waiting for like a more obvious thing to present itself instead of just going for stuff and not just like without reason, but looking for better opportunities more often rather than the best opportunity if it's going to burn down the entire clock. This is by far the worst example of it, but like even on the other maps, it was a little bit obvious they were taking too much time.
It's going to be an aggressive nano onto Fletta. Fletta can't quite find a target just yet. Alarm being very evasive.
Forces trance. Okay, looks like they're going to flip. This is the danger of playing the shock style of waiting to absorb regression and then re-aggress. I think Philly's got a somewhat similar mindset. Like obviously they're still looking for their own things with the ball and with the Tracer, but it seems like with Fury's positioning, to me, and with the way Carpe sort of comes back to the backline more often than we see Fletta do, seems to me like they're more keen on punishing than they are on creating opportunity.
And Void, you know, this guy, he earned his All-Star distinction.
Which, like I said, is a very good playstyle. We see Shock find a lot of success with it, but I think Philly's execution isn't quite there, and they're just taking too long to find those re-engages and find aggression of their own. But maybe Carpe's going to pull a profit and just find all the engages they need.
Yeah, Carpe right now bouncing around. Pulse Bomb definitely going to be used here, I think, if the Dragons stay in the fight. Sato out of it, but this is looking far.
Get him, Carpe.
They've hit the point of critical mass where the Dragons have to back out.
Okay, so they did manage to hold there.
Yeah, the Dragons hit 99.
Again, I think Carpe's doing a ton of work right now, but Philly style, once they have the point, is a lot more valid than when they need to retake. So they're just going to have an easier time in general holding space, because they have the space to kite, they have the onus is on Shanghai to find the opportunity, and as long as Philly's ready for them, for that aggression, it's going to be very impactful. So again, we're seeing sort of the same thing, what Carpe's doing here. Obviously it's a lot easier on Tracer, but sort of what Shock was doing and what Seoul eventually started doing with their snipers, where they'll set up on the flank, wait for Shanghai to go aggressive, then hit the flank with their DPS. Hisu getting complete. This is like such a garbage position to be in if you're Hisu. Like, why are they forcing? So I said Philly's going to have an advantage because they have the space to work with and they're able to kite. But why would you kite yourself into this corner? Well, number one, why would you give up this side of the map? If anything, this is where you should be fighting for, not on point. They're a little bit scared because of the progress on the point itself. And sure, maybe Hisu wants to hold this angle to start, and he might be forced back there. But there's no reason to give up this entire side of the map and force your entire team into this corner. By giving up this space, by giving up basically this mega room, not hitting up at these chokes when they come out, giving up your side of the map, they've just forced Hisu, not only Hisu, but Hisu and the rest of his team, it seems, with Hisu, Fury, Alarm, Funny Astro, they're all back there getting forced into that corner, and they're not heroes that have tools to recontest. They have a trance they might be forced to use to get back out. But after that, like, look at all these people that are just forced into one angle. Yeah, it's Hisu, Alarm, and Funny Astro. And Fury's down here. So they're doing nothing. They're contesting the point, and they're fighting the people on point, but the real fight's happening over here. And this is where Shanghai's going to find their advantage. They're going to find an advantage from Izayaki having an extremely safe position, being out of range of Hisu, Alarm, potentially in range of Carpe, but they can peel for Carpe. Same as they can peel for Sato. And they can set up whatever engage they want. DM has full reign of the entire map right now. Fleta has full reign of the entire map right now. They have to commit someone between Fleta and Stand and maybe Void to touching the point. But other than that, they can execute wherever they want, and they can pick off members just by owning the map right now. I think Philly really messed up their kiting, and yeah, they just started focusing down. I don't even know where DM is, but he's just killing everything. Oh, okay, he's above main. Good lord. Yeah, that was really awful kiting from Philly. Like, in order for kiting to work, you need to pressure in a point that they need to go through. So, like, how can I explain this? The fact that they started around point, like this high ground is better than literally standing on the point, but it's basically on point, means that by the time they're kiting, they kite off of the point. So once they get pushed into this corner, Shanghai doesn't need to do anything anymore. They've already forced them off the point. Whereas if they started way further up at the chokes and then kited to here and then kited to back point, that's like at least double the time, potentially double the resources that it takes for Shanghai to move through that space, move through the map. And it's more time for Philly to find opportunities to go aggressive, either by hitting exposed backline members, finding picks with your Widow, whatever the case is, finding engagements with your Ball Tracer. It's just, you're buying yourself more time. You're forcing Shanghai to be uncomfortable for more time instead of just completely giving up the point, forcing yourself into this angle where Widow's not going to do anything, Zen's not going to do anything, and forcing someone to touch, in this case Fury, who just gets immediately blown up. It was really bad positioning pre-fight there. I'm not sure why they I don't remember if they had people like still spawning or something, but like there's no reason to not pressure those chokes, even though it's a dive team, even though they have Ball Tracer who can go touch the point. Your worry isn't about them touching the point, it's about winning the last fight. And they were too tunneled and setting up either Hisu's position and peeling for him, because I guess they thought Stand and Fleta were gonna dive him, but that was really poor play.
It definitely looks that way, ZP. I mean, come on, these maps are going back and forth. Even when a team has the advantage, everything looks like it's going their way. Sometimes these players just make
next map.
Performances that defy the laws of Overwatch, you know, change the way you think about the game.
Oh god, I remember now.
Maybe Carp, you know,
so,
players,
reminder, it's loser's pick.
If they can just perform consistently in a clutch situation.
And we're going to King's Row. So Philly picked King's Row.
What you normally do.
Shanghai's defending first. They chose King's Row. I think Shanghai chose to defend first.
In those high-pressure situations, they might be very talented, but they just can't quite put it together when all the eyes are on them.
Number one, I think they need to know Stand is going to be playing Roadhog. They need to know a Roadhog comp is on defense here, not only because the map, but because they're playing Stand 1. They're not playing Fearless. So he's not. It showed he's their ball player from the last map. Maybe he's just their ball player on Koth. He's not going to be playing ball here. There's no team that's going to play ball over the Hog comp on King's Row first point defense. So they need to be expecting Hog.
I think it's just the nature of Carpe. You know, he's had these.
And this is like not an unfamiliar comp we're seeing. In order to beat this comp, you need to make sure they don't overcommit to the tank line. Make sure they're taking steps to push out members of the DPS and slowly gain space for their own lineup. They're running Hisu. Okay, never mind, they're not too far. So again, mirror comps. Alarm on Ana, Izaki on Zen. Again, Zen better when you can have space. So good after winning first fight Koth, or good on defense. Ana better at creating space, just more healing means your tanks can stay aggressive for longer. Tools like Nano means they have aggressive turn opportunities. Nade, obviously, a very good tool for going aggressive with. Compared to Zen, who just does damage and has a Transcendence. In order for Fusion to make this work, they need to leverage their sniper positions along with their tank line pressure so that they're either catching people, focusing their tanks, focusing Sado and Fury, wherever Fury is right now, or Fury, focusing the point by either contesting the point themselves with their front line, or just in general putting less resources into the DPS duel, probably on angles like this, on angles like this, maybe angles like this or this, or if you're being really aggressive, angles like through Hotel. So your first step as Philly needs to be to take attention away from the DPS, and then the DPS need to capitalize. So let's see if Philly can do that.
It's close across the board, but now the Fusion, they're on the attack, and it's a double sniper attack here, Jake.
So a ton of pick potential, obviously.
Yeah, 4 heroes mirrored, but Shanghai, they're running the Ashe and the Zenyatta, which means overall they're going to have a bit less utility, a bit less chance for individual pickoffs.
Oh my god, Hisu goes down.
Significantly better.
So let's see exactly how this happened.
Ashe and the Zenyatta, which means overall they're going to have a bit less.
So one, what the fuck is this? Why are you walking like single file? One, the shield isn't up. No one's crossing with a shield. They know DM is up here behind a shield. They know Fleta is probably holding an off angle here, likely very able to shoot this crossing. I do not understand this play, this movement from Philly. One, I would not be moving Ana up. Two, I would not be peeking with Widow at the same time unless I see aggression going on these members crossing. I think if you're doing this properly, one, these members need to be like on top of each other if they're all planning on crossing. At the very least, these three members need to be in a much tighter circle as they're crossing so that Hog's body and Sigma shield can protect all of them, not just one of them. These people must be social distancing. Honestly, this is 6 feet apart right here. This is this is, I mean, Hog's even wearing a mask, damn. So the fact that they're crossing this sloppily, it cannot be by design, in my opinion. If it is by design, it's by poor design, and they're trying to bait aggression from DM to peek out so Hisu can take the shot on him or something. But again, like, even if they're trying to bait that, they haven't dealt with this shield. Like, there's nothing saying DM can't play behind the shield right now. Granted, he doesn't, and he still gets the kill, but still. And also, at the same time, why would you have Carpe and Funny Astro exposed during this time? Like, these members are trying to take space, but they're not threatening anything right now. I mentioned that Philly needs to find threat before their DPS can do anything, because their DPS need as little pressure on them as possible, because there's more threat from Zen on defense, and of course, just by defensive positioning alone, there's more threat from this comp mirror. So if they're fighting for this space with Hog, Ana, and Sigma, number one, tighter positioning to make sure they actually get this cross. Number 2, don't peek at the same time. Don't take duels at the same time and open yourself up to making this push irrelevant. Like, let's say these 3 members executed this perfectly, but then Hisu's peeking, Carpe's peeking at the same time, and both of them go down. Then what do Hog, Sigma, and Ana do if they're just like below clock tower at the Mega Room? They're just going to get pushed, and then that whole fight is completely null and void. Like, the fact that, well, obviously Alarm goes down, like I said, this is just completely exposed for no reason. Fury goes down to the Dynamite, or he's about to. Hisu goes down to the Dynamite. Carpe goes down because he's peeking at the same time. I do not understand. They do not have the space to do this. They're completely just disrespecting Shanghai's defensive setup, and they're just trying to walk through like this. It's like they assumed Shanghai wouldn't have a defensive setup. I don't know what they were planning there. So now Sato. So, like I mentioned, the fact that people got traded out means this push becomes nullified. So Sato tries to save it by instead running all the way to second point, and trying to find a split threat. So, like, in theory, this is really good because now you have that split threat without even needing to fight for it the first time. He doesn't have Fury with him. He doesn't have Alarm with him, which I think is what they wanted. I don't know if they wanted them to go all the way this way, but I think if they wanted to fight for that high ground through Clock Tower, they wanted the shield, they wanted the healing, they wanted the nade and sleep potential so that they can help duel enemy Sigma, enemy Hog, and stuff like that, and just have more threat and more ground to hold once they push them out. The fact that Sato's here alone means that the rest of his team needs to fully capitalize on him taking pressure, and he only has his own resources to keep himself alive. So this can be really punishing, but I remember watching this live and thinking, like, why aren't they coordinating something? They have visual on 5 members right now. What is the rest of his team doing right now? You'd think, with all those members pushed up to push up Sato, they'd be taking full control of the map.
But he's already done so much in this position. He's already created a lot of space for his team. Even just living right now would be a big deal. Void doesn't want to let that happen. Wants to finish off the Hog, and he gets the heal off. He's gonna win this.
Oh my god.
Wait, is he gonna win this? This is
and yes, okay, so Sato, Void absolutely misplayed that. He missed the rock during the vape. He didn't interrupt the vape, and then he actually gets hooked during the rock, so the rock doesn't even go off. But the amount of space, like coming back to the point now, we didn't see exactly what happened when Void started taking that duel, but look at the amount of space Philly have. It's basically nothing. I don't see exactly where Fury is. But the Widow is defensive position up here. Carpe and Alarm are right here. What was all that time spent for? They sent 5 members up here to chase the Hog. They eventually came back to the point. Oh, Fury died. Fury was on point contesting. If they have someone on point contesting, why are they not fully pushing up, fully denying this space so that, number 1, Shanghai can't come back on these multiple angles and use these different high grounds to their advantage, and number 2, so that they can find advantages of their own to, 1, support Sato even more. They have to choose then between pushing Sato. Void has to choose between pushing Sato or trying to shield his team from multiple angles. Stand 1's position just gets completely nullified if everyone's on the high ground. Again, I don't think Void should have gone, not Void, jeez, Fury should have gone to the point. I get that he wanted to get ticks, but I think it's more important to either fully commit to taking all of this space, fully forcing them off high ground before dropping yourself, so that you've got your Ana, you've got your Widowmaker, you've got your Hanzo, all contesting from the high ground with shield to start, and then you slowly push out the space, slowly force people one by one, because again, stand 1's already on the ground, Void end up dropping to chase Sato. There's no tanks in your way, and you have a tank of your own. You should be able to fully clear this ground. No reason not to. But again, by the time we come back to the point here, there's no one threatening. There's no one threatening these spaces up here. There's only defensive positions from Hisu up here as the Widow and from Carpe around the statue. It just doesn't make sense to me that they didn't take more space, given what they were trying to do with Sato. This really made me upset seeing Phil. No, he gets the kill on the Hanzo. I don't think there was really a reason to commit whole hog there, but he probably would have gotten that kill faster if he just waited for his hook to come back up. But good lord, that's 2 minutes wasted, and It's just such a bad showing from Philly.
I think we've ever seen. And the Dragons just look clean right now, Jake.
I mean,
and that all started from the goddamn social distancing push we saw, where only Sato survived.
That's the power that's Zen to be that next frag.
Well, he was the only one with a mask, so.
Ana so far hasn't been able to have that same level of impact. He is coming up on the nano boost, but gonna be awkward to make use of, right? You don't have that Winston, Genji, you know, none of these obvious nano takers. You know, your best bet might be just walking Sato onto the point, giving him a nano, and you know, hoping for the best. But he is
again. I think this is a case of Philly playing a little bit too slowly here.
I think that at some point the Dragons realized, okay,
I think Sato was pushing through. So again, another situation. Sato, I believe, was pushing through Hotel there at the same time that Widow was trying to go up here. If you're pushing space, if either one of these members is pushing space, the other member should be either holding or giving up space to support that. Because if you push in two directions simultaneously, one of those members is at risk of getting punished. Probably not the Widow in this case, but as we saw, Hog goes down and Alarm goes down. So the fact that they're pushing too much ground at the same time is just disrespectful to Shanghai's ability to read the situation and read the fact that, so for example, if Widow instead had stayed back in theater and was covering this angle, by the time Sato and Alarm try to fall back, they run the risk of being pushed into a Widow angle, the defenders Shanghai do, or if they try to capitalize this way, they run the risk of walking into a Widow angle. But because he was doing his own thing during that time and trying to set up his own flank, there's no risk to pushing out this Hog and Ana. It's already, the threat is dealing with itself by being out of position.
Joy running into the backline anymore. We're going to take him down immediately. But, I mean, really,
and that's that risk I talked about, where you're running this double sniper Hog comp, where if you miss time with your Hog, or just your frontline in general as a sniper, if you take a mistiming, either you're going to be punished yourself and being forced out, or if not killed, or you're not going to be valuable because you're not going to be online at the same time. Oh my god, one shot. You're not going to be online at the same time as your tanks are.
They're cut down on the push, and they're getting chased right back to the spawn. Void does not want to let them escape, and neither does Stand One. Just absolute destruction on this Kings Row defense. I don't want to call it a defense.
Oh no, Izayaki.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a treasure hunt more than anything.
So okay, Philly's got almost 5 ults online.
It is a little bit more of what we're seeing. But
and Shanghai also almost have 6 ult online, so never mind. Again, it's crazy to me that they would pick Kings Row and then seem this lost and this sloppy on it. Like, I would say you probably don't want to pick Kings Row against Shanghai right now anyway, because they've shown they're really good at this comp. And this is just the default comp on this map now. But the fact that you picked it as Philly should show, at the very least, confidence in your own execution, your own ability to play this map, regardless of what the enemy's playing, right? The fact that you're playing basically a mirror match and looking so unprepared for it, so disrespectful to the enemy defense setup, just ignoring basic Overwatch things of setting up for pre-fights and setting up proper engagements, just it's such a bad showing from Philly to me. And I really just don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand the map pick. I don't understand what they were going for, what their attempted execution was supposed to look like. There's just so many question marks on that map. But it's over. 2-0 Shanghai. Now we're going to Volskaya. Again, probably not the map I would have picked versus Shanghai. If I'm Philly, there's probably not any map I'm comfortable facing Shanghai on. They're an extremely good team. But again, a notoriously strong Hog map, in my opinion. I think some people disagree. But I think Hog defense here is extremely strong and extremely hard to beat. And they're not even opting for like a ball offense.
They are the Dragons. They are one of those
fast forward a bit. So yeah, they're opting for their own Hog comp on offense. They're not even trying something like a ball to get around the Hog, which is going to make this offense even harder because there's going to be no one to fall. Or maybe they're just going for a hook early. No. So like, what's Hisu going to do that's going to be that can be followed up on by the rest of his team?
Yeah, I mean, the Sombra, well, doesn't
Just
last for
checking
long.
comms.
It's back to double sniper.
Okay, yeah, sniper.
And this is where, if you're a Fusion fan at home, you're looking towards Hisu and Carpe.
Again, I'd really like to see
Land that
Ball
one
Tracer
shot,
Widow
put Flynn on the
if
ground, and
you're
okay, it's
Philly
actually
here.
a sleep dart from Alarm. Again, Rookie of the Year, but ball through's not going to be there. Still,
Not to say this is an unwinnable matchup.
the opportunity
It's just
off the sleep dart, apply
the fact
pressure,
that
hold
Shanghai
on.
can just solely focus on controlling the tank line, solely focus on this choke point really heavily, makes it very, very hard for Sato especially, but for anyone to take space.
Vaporized.
Absolutely
Sato got
vaporized.
too far away
And again,
from
a lot of this is going to come down to advantage of having Zen on defense and just the defensive setup in general in a mirror match. I would argue any mirror match favors the defenders.
1 minute burned off the clock.
It's just
And,
you can choose where to fight, you can choose where to set up, you can start with predetermined positioning, you don't need to fight for positioning for your Ana, you don't need to fight for positioning for your snipers, you just by default have it.
Headshot will be huge, but he doesn't connect it this time.
Mouse movement, not great there. Alarm already out of the fight. Stand one connecting, but Carpe finds Fleta.
Ooh, nice hook.
But will they be able to secure the kill? No. In fact, Carpe
Stand one's been popping off.
picking off where Fleta left
I haven't been
off.
watching APAC like this whole season, but from what I understand, he's had very little playtime. And for him to come out on this ball and this hog and look this prepared, this well executed, is really good showing from him.
Not only does it enable himself and Carpe, but also helps Sato and Fury find those hooks and accretion connections. But no one's giving themselves up to these jump shots. Great discipline from Shanghai. It's really giving them extra safety here.
All right, recon side is up. The Fusion making another attempt. Stand one, sleeping on the job early. Carpe, though, falling to Fleta again. The Dragons
They're just falling one
keeping
by
up the
one.
pressure.
And again,
The
like they're
resurrection coming
locking
in.
themselves
It's
into this
not
mirror
gonna be
matchup,
great.
and they're not giving
They're
themselves
staying
any
fight now. The
tools
Fusion
to
there,
really
pick up scraps
break
from
through. They're
this.
forcing
Rest still
themselves
there.
just to
Fleta's
take the
back in
pure
fight. Dragon Strike goes down
head-to-head
mainstream.
matchup
And Stand One still somehow
with an
alive.
inherent disadvantage of being on
Heal
offense.
kept him up, but Lee-J gone
Almost as if
almost
APAC
fell
bench is
there.
better than any
Barely,
starters. I wouldn't go that far.
survived
Hey,
himself and Valkyrie, so
Shock did
really
beat Soul.
grinding the limit there, but I think he has to take that risk. So well calculated.
But I
by
do
him,
think
and,
Philly's having
you
an
know, when the ult trade ends,
unusually
Shanghai
poor
is still
showing
in
this
the
match,
point, and they've got
and that's either due to the fact that they've never faced a team this strong in Shanghai. Like, I don't even think on this comp, I don't think Shock is even as strong as Shanghai. And I think it's really showing how well prepared Shanghai is in this meta. But Philly just has no answer other than forcing the mirror and just ramming their heads into the wall, hoping something works. They're leaving it up to people like Carpe, Sato, and individuals on Kings Row, just trying to find kills and make it work, but it's just obviously not working.
We've seen from the Shanghai Dragons actually time and time again in past metas.
I think this is showing that Philly does not have a strong enough understanding of this meta, of this comp in particular, but also aren't strong enough to feel to find the same swaps that Shock was finding. For example, swapping to Ball Tracer here because of this map type.
This is a risky strategy, you know, one false
All right,
move,
that's
you
a
will get
quick
cut
ban.
down, but when you're so tight and disciplined as the Dragons are, it pays off big time.
Carpe down first, the big gun for the Fusion are in the fight. Final 13 seconds as Fleta's Dragon just eats
Philly just has no way of finding an advantage. And I'm not saying like they're a bad team, like they're obviously a very good team. They made it to the Grand Finals. But the fact that Shanghai did not lose a single team fight here just shows that they've got a much better understanding of this meta, much better understanding of their heroes as individuals, and just a better understanding of how to leverage this composition. And I think it's going to take Fusion either adapting to a more flexible composition to find different win conditions and not running the mirror. Maybe they were planning on losing this match and just like running through losers. And maybe they're hiding strats or something, but this poor of a showing versus Shanghai does not bode well for Fusion.
Hanzo and Ash with the Zenyatta as well, and Izayaki.
Dallas is slowly releasing their Korean side players. Did something happen today?
You're still playing a sniper comp, and you're only switching an Ana to a Zen.
Someone get
I
released?
think from an outside perspective, a novice perspective, you might look at these comps and think they're relatively similar. But these key adjustments are actually having huge impact, and I think it's making
I saw
a big difference.
Vol'jin put up his LFT post today.
Shock should be studying this game. They should be anticipating anticipating this comp, because this is Shanghai's ace in the hole. The fact that they have this incredible amount of tank damage means that Sato and Fury, it feels like they're struggling to have any impact at all. They're constantly being cut down, being bursted down before they're ready. And that's because Shanghai,
there was a fuel announcement for Vol'jin. The only one left on the staff is, well, as a coach, is Young.
In order to secure the game, in order to secure those tank bursting kills. So, you know, in a game,
Career shopping like from Glads. Oh, the Jane leak came true.
All the more important.
And now again, the fact that Fusion are running Alarm on Ana on defense instead of Zen, again, it screams to me that, like, one... Okay, so first of all, before I even say this, one, Alarm is probably one of the best Zen players in the world, right? I would put him as a better Zen player than Izayaki, personally. There's probably some debate over that. He got Rookie of the Year for a reason. He's an insane mechanical player. He's got a very good understanding of all these heroes. He can make a very noticeable impact on Zen. And I think just nature of being on defense should favor Zenyatta play over Ana play. Why are they opting for a more defensive pick? Especially knowing that they can't even give up one tick. They need to be proactive in their playmaking, and they can't just sit back and let Shanghai do their thing.
Just ruining their lives on their attack. Now they're on the defense, and much as the Dragons were just perfect on their defense, so must the Fusion be. They don't want to get knocked into the loser's bracket for tomorrow, which of course would place the Fusion against the Dynasty. The Dragons now
and
on
in
the
the
way
mirror,
forward.
Fusion's just giving up space.
Fusion.
Like, if Shanghai played like Fusion did on defense, Fusion probably would have capped first point. Look at all the space they're giving up. They're not enabling their DPS right now. They are, in fact, enabling Shanghai's tanks to just go and pressure enemy backline for free. Carpe finds a nice pick. Hisu finds a nice pick. Fleta answers.
Carpe out of the fight. Dragons, though, they're down more here thus far.
Okay, first fight's not so bad.
Roadhog, the resurrection is there. Fusion holding strong thus far, but that is a big pickup. Funny Astro out of the fight, and even the Fusion at 5 here.
Like, I'm not, obviously, Fleta popped off, but I think just in general, the setup that Philadelphia allowed them to take in the split setup meant that Fleta would have inherently a lot more uptime than, for example, Carpe on their attack.
It's going to make a big difference. Funny Astro hitting the super jump over the high.
Is this kind of thinking hard for players in game? You mean like the thinking between Zen and Ana? I don't think that kind of thinking needs to happen in game. I think that should absolutely be addressed outside of game and by the coaches.
That's something to be proud of.
The main things players should be thinking about in game is how to use the tools they've been given, use everything they've been talking about pre-game and scrims and all that. Use all that information to make the best decisions possible in game. They should not have to think about what tools they need to be giving themselves. They should be thinking about how to use those tools. If that makes sense. There's already so much you need to worry about in game that, like, forcing them to think about macro decisions when they don't need to, stuff like composition changes, should be more burdened on the coaches.
To control them, look at Sato finds himself in this awkward corner.
Big dragon. That's 2 ults though.
For Carpe, gives him an easy 3-piece. And now Jake,
Carpe popping off.
Continues to pile it on. There's a little bit of light at the end of the
Again, I think Shanghai just playing a little bit too linearly there. I think they're maybe getting ahead of themselves.
Beautiful combination.
The fact that they put themselves in a position to be engaged on without Stand 1 or Fleta finding some sort of engagement of their own, some sort of aggression. Like, look how far back they are already. Means they weren't ready for that engage, and they're just playing a little bit too aggressively, taking too much space.
Highest percent win condition, just giving yourself that 6 ult fight. It might be an overtime, but it's coming. Nano onto both Roadhogs, and the instant burst.
Oh, and the Nano.
Whole hogging the enemy hog into the corner. Good trade so far for Dragons.
The Fusion,
and again, they only need 1 tick, so this is looking like it's going to be it.
That's huge. The healing decimated on the side. The Fusion, still 4 left.
Yep.
Fury swapping the ball to get back to the point soon. The Fusion have to stay on it.
Shanghai didn't even need to fight for space properly. They just walked in and nanoed Hawk.
Sacrifices his life. It comes at a dear cost. Fury back over to the point. The Dragons, though, in the winning spot.
That's going to be it.
Fury goes down. That could be it. And the Dragons, they
will
move
3-0
on to face the shock tomorrow.
So tomorrow is going to be Philly versus Seoul, Shock versus Shanghai. given what we've seen, it's so hard to gauge Shanghai, honestly, because I think a lot of this was a very poor performance from Philly, especially this Kings row. This moment right here is just so bad, in my opinion. But things from Shanghai, again, similar to what I was saying about Shock, it looks like just Shanghai doesn't make mistakes. The hardest time they have is when they're finding aggressive opportunities of their own. I think Shanghai had an easier opponent, so I think they weren't punished as hard for that, obviously. But their defenses are looking rock solid, and that does not bode well for Shock. I don't think Shanghai were overly pushed in this match to find hard engages, to find like ways into fights that they would normally struggle with. So I think, of course, they'll struggle against Shock a lot more than they'll struggle against Philly, but I would definitely give the edge to Shanghai just based off their defensive play and how smart they've been playing. At least if it comes down to mirror matches. It's possible like teams are just completely hiding comps for higher seed matches, and maybe they pull out something completely different, but I doubt that, given how strong this composition has looked and how dominant this composition has looked. So tomorrow, I definitely give the edge to Shanghai over Shock, but it's very possible the Shock surprise us with potentially some more aggressive play. It's not unheard of for them to be just more overwhelming than the enemy team with aggression, but again, Shanghai's defenses have looked so clean, so punishing, and in this meta, it's often the first team to make a mistake, and both Shock and Shanghai have looked like teams that just don't make mistakes. So it'll be a good one. Philly versus Seoul. If Seoul shows us the same team that they showed in maps 3 and 4 in their game versus Shock, absolutely they should dominate Philly. But that inconsistency from them could spell disaster, especially if Philly finds more of a rhythm going into their next set. It seemed pretty clear to me that they're uncomfortable both on this composition and in its matchups. So they don't know, like, I don't know if they don't know, but they've decided against things that other teams have deemed stronger. For example, Zen on defense, swapping off of Widow for Ashe in certain locations and stuff like that. But they're still very capable, and I think if Seoul continues to play a little bit messy like they did versus Shock in a certain number of those maps, Philly might be able to punish that. But again, Philly's going to need to play a lot faster themselves, a lot smarter on defense, a lot more aggressive when they need to be, not waste so much time like we saw on the Koth maps if they're going to take that series. But yeah, my predictions for tomorrow would definitely be Shanghai over Shock, probably Seoul over Philly, but a close game. But yeah, that's going to be the stream for today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be back tomorrow, looking at tomorrow's games, of course. So be sure to tune in if you're interested in that kind of stuff. What did you guys think of this, watching the YouTube VODs versus like going in depth in the replay viewer? I liked not having to worry about like controlling the camera and moving around and catching all the action myself, honestly. There were a few things we missed, like this fight in particular, like seeing what was happening on point when Sato was doing his little escapade. But in general, I think I like doing this for official broadcast stuff, unless I'm doing like a deep dive into a specific map or something. But yeah, what do you guys think? Because yeah, unless you guys absolutely hate this, I'll probably do the same thing tomorrow. Just rewatching the official VODs, because I probably won't be able to wake up again on time to fully watch, or at least fully absorb the games when they're live. So I like being able to hear the broadcast. I like being able to just let the games play in front of me and actually just react instead of fully analyze everything, because it is my first time watching a lot of these games. So yeah, good stuff, good stuff. But yeah, I'll be back tomorrow, same time, noon PST. So be sure to tune in if you guys want to see tomorrow's games. And thank you guys for tuning in today. I will catch you later. Peace.